Let me start relatively easily. First of all, I try to avoid conflict with optometrists, but I will not run from a scientific fight if the scientific fight is fair-minded and honest with me and with you. Yes, there are some optometrists who quietly and privately said the minus lens is a total disaster for the completely normal eye. It is responsible for galloping myopia. And if you use it, you will go down rapidly and it'll be virtually impossible to get out of it. Now that says a lot of honesty failure. Optometry is a niche profession. It fixes you instantly with a minus lens. But from a scientific point of view, the minus lens is a bottomless pit which your eyes are going to jump into if you start wearing it. Now, do we want a science? Do we want a scientific argument? Or do we want a profession that protects its privileged interests and not your own personal visual welfare? Saying this, I look at a Snellen, and I do accept the compromise that I must always exceed or pass the 20/40 line. But given that optometry is a niche activity, having little connection with science, it's hardly surprising that I will not make optometry statements. That being said, I will get the remark as I want to get out of it rapidly, quickly, and I don't want any nonsense about science and analysis. That will kill you, he'd say that. Personally, I think it's very difficult to get out of even 20/40 to 20/60, but I would certainly do it if people were honest with me, with science and with fact in high school, because I know there is no other choice if I get in deeper than about 20/50 or 20/60. Self-measured -1 diopter. I see a lot of my sight contact lenses. Use atropine on an eye on a daily basis. Give the kids strong minus lenses. They really don't care. Maybe they don't know how to care. I don't know. It's not worth my time to argue with it. Let me give credit to two people who made this worthwhile to me, friends, scientists, engineer. They are Dr. Antonio Medina and Dr. Peter Green. Without their support, I really could not have continued with this work. Let me post two videos by Jake. One has to do with kids slowly getting out of it from 0.27 meters to about 1.2 meters in terms of their measurement of refractive state. The other has to do with people are demanding they get out of it rapidly. But what you find out is they never, ever look at a Snellen. So they really have no idea what's going on. To fail to look at a Snellen in a consistent manner is to fail to know anything at all. Clearly, I'm drawing a line between science or pure science and what goes on in optometry. Now, I personally accept responsibility for my own bad habits as a child, and you'll see it all over the place. Kids with nose on their cell phones. That takes it down. And they will not listen to any sort of discipline that would mean you push the cell phone away to 20 inches and read through a +2 diopter lens. Because they don't anticipate what's dead certain to happen if they continue with their nose on the cell phone. Now, one of my friends was Dr. Francis Young. He ran the PLUS study. But even there, it's impossible to get the kids to cooperate in any sort of scientific sense. Mature adults in high school, yes, because you can explain consequences to them if they do not take prevention seriously at 2040. Jake is a great resource for information. What Jake does is to advocate a reduced minus lens, which I strongly advocate too, except I advocate starting prevention before you go below 2050 or 2060. And that, believe me, is a reduced minus or a strong plus at near. Obviously, there's limits to the plus you can use at near. That's basically physics, Kepler physics. But there's a subtle issue involved. A prescription generally is way in excess of anything reasonable, but you only know what you see when you look at a Snellen. So I've seen people with, for instance, -4 diopters, and with coaching, the work, they managed to read the 2060 line. I was amazed. This tells me that in every office, you're overprescribed 1, 2, or 3 diopters. And the only way you know anything is to set up a Snellen. Now, vision clearing is an extremely slow activity. And because of Frank Young's work with the plus lens, it's very clear that the plus lens is a long-term proposition. There's no such thing as short-term prevention where you cure yourself. There is no cure. There can't be any cure because that's not the nature of the scientific problem. I got my sister's kids, and you can imagine how old they are now, to wear the plus through college. The result is they always exceeded or passed the DMV line of 2040, actually did far better than that. They were diffident. They took enough of this seriously to wear the plus through college, and that's what it takes. As long as you're personally reading the 2040 at home, you can avoid wearing a minus lens. I expect far more of that of myself than I do of most people. But that they learned from Jacob Rafelson and Charles Prentice of the total danger of a minus lens if you start wearing. Equally, I do accept standards. The standard is I must pass the 2040 line, always by self-checking. Fear of the plus lens used properly. All I can say is you better overcome your fear. I fear the minus lens, any minus lens for wearing, but I accept the responsibility to objectively read and pass the 2040 line. Now, in that mix, you'll have to make a choice. No one in optometry will tell you anything. They'll deny everything. They'll deny all science, and you will suffer the consequences of that denial. And I regret that's truth, but it isn't scientific truth. If you only get into a medical argument, you could leave me out of the argument. I won't do it. If you're following Jake, continue following him. He's a very motivated person. My goodness, now Jake won't quit. He may not win, but he will not quit. And that says a lot for Jake. In the future, a plus prevention study started with high school students would succeed, but I would insist that each man measure his own refractive state and sign an agreement that he is personally responsible for his distant vision for life. He could drop out of the study or not enter, but he must make objective measurements himself. It's either that or you're not a scientist. Thank you very much for listening.